This is Metal Mike, and 1989 was the peak of 80s metal. So in this episode, we present our favorite 10 metal albums from 1989. I'm joined by my friend Frank, who is a supporter of the podcast through Anchor. You should consider supporting the podcast through Anchor. Check out the link in the description below, and make sure you like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. It's time to check it out.
Well, Frank, welcome to the 80's Glam Metalcast. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, and love your show.
Thank you, man. Hey, and I just want to let everybody know, Frank is a supporter through Anchor. We got connected through email. We've been talking back and forth trying to figure out, what can we talk about on this show? And one idea I've been kicking around for a long time is I wanted to do a 1989 episode because in my book, Frank, this is the pinnacle of hair metal and glam metal and metal in general. What do you think?
Well, it's such a special year, and for me, I'm older than you, but this was my senior year of high school, so this was great. This was just a great year and I love the idea when you threw that out there. With some of the other albums released like the year prior or the year after, I kind of had to go back through to make sure that this wasn't released in 89 because it was so tough just to work through this list as it was with 1989. It was just so many different groups that I just love, and this was hard. This was really difficult.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I kind of, and ultimately just to let the listeners know, we're going to do a top 10. So we're going to go through our top 10 albums. But let's talk about 1989 a little bit because, I just, like I said, I said it, at the start of this, I feel like this is the peak, this is the zenith. We've got so many albums, like new bands, like debut albums coming out, and a lot of other bands are kind of like hitting their stride where they're putting out some of their biggest albums, like Motley Crue, for example. I mean, you've got Kiss and Alice Cooper still out there making albums, but then you've got all these bands like Nitro, Cats and Boots, Babylon AD, Pretty Boy Floyd. I mean, I could sit here for an hour and I still wouldn't, catch all the bands that came out in 1989.
No, you're right. And when you say self-titled, I mean, there's 5 of them on my top 10 that are self-titled albums.
Right.
So that's so that just goes to show that, there's a lot coming out at that time. And then you have some that were, on their second or third, and then like Motley, like their fifth, so this was amazing. It's an amazing year.
Now, I'm going to go through and just tell you, this is the criteria that I used. And if you want to share what you use, go ahead. So my top one is, do I like every song? Okay, that was one I thought was important. The musicianship and the production obviously came into play. Is there a cool vibe? Sometimes an album just has a cool vibe, so that kind of came into play. Here's another one I got. Maybe I don't love every song, but the ones I do love are so good that it makes up for the other songs that aren't that hot. And finally, it's like, how does it sound to my ears today? Because there are some albums that I thought were amazing in 89, and when I go back to them, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I like that one as much. And then other albums, maybe it took me 30 years to realize how great it was. What was some of the criteria that you used?
Pretty similar. I tried to go back to that 1989, and if you could, like have a clicker on how many times you think you played that album, and you just know you wore out the cassette. Like, I mean, at the time it was still playing cassettes and maybe had the album and the cassette and CD at that time. If I owned all 3 platforms, it seemed like that one went on my list, and there was a couple of them like that. Then how they still hold up to this day, the production. Do I love every song on the album? That would rank it higher. And then, there was a couple with the quality of production that kind of fell off my list because of that. But it was more about trying to go back in that time and when what I feel like I listened to the most. That's pretty much how I went about it, just to kind of narrow it down because I was having such a hard time.
I was shuffling too. I don't know about you, but I was doing some shuffling. Of like, I had it, and then all of a sudden I was like, nope, I got to do some shuffling.
Oh, it was so hard. I mean, I just had like this whole other list, and I'm not kidding, with like 20, where it's like so hard to leave off. But it just, once we tried to hit, that top 10, and you had to break it down in ways that this one has to slide off because this one was just, this one has to go in there,
Yep.
And so it was really, really a struggle.
And I have a feeling, I don't know about you, but I have a feeling that when some people listen to this, they're going to be screaming at me through their device. They're screaming at their device at me. How could you pick that number one? How is this one not on there? And I'm maybe when we're done, I'll go through a couple like honorable mentions and maybe why this album didn't make it. But Frank, start us off, man. What's your number 10?
So my number 10 is Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah!
If you have a touch-tone phone,
Call us on the Motley Crue hotline. 1-900-932-8-CREW.
Yeah! You could win an autographed poster of us.
Or a personal phone call to your home.
And it's the lowest on my list, but they were a top band for me, coming out when I was younger at the time. And for me, I felt like this was a comeback album because I wasn't a big fan of Theater of Pain, and Girls, Girls, Girls had some strong songs, but Dr. Feelgood was a comeback album, I think, for them, I felt. And it was, Bob Rock, so well produced, and they had strong songs in it, then just sold, 6 million copies or whatever it was. I mean, it just was a strong album for them and a comeback album. Yeah, so I just feel like in the MTV, I just remember when Dr. Feelgood was going to be the world premiere video on MTV, and the anticipation, just wanting to hear what they were going to bring, and it was a solid album, and that's where it falls for me at number 10.
Nice. Well, I am going to make one revelation right now, is that Dr. Feelgood is not in my top 10, and I'm going to explain just quick why. And I think it's I loved it at the time. I probably thought it was their best album. But then going back, like now when I listen to it, I think the singles are incredible. But once again, they're the singles, and they're kind of all played out to me by listening to Hair Nation and things like that. And then the deep tracks, I don't like them anymore. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like She Goes Down or Rattlesnake Shake or Slice Your Pie. I just don't really like those songs anymore. I don't know why. When I look at other albums, like when I look at their first 3 maybe, there's cool deep tracks that I like. You know what I mean? And this album doesn't have any for me. So it has great singles. Once again, 5 singles. That was unheard of for Motley Crue at that time. But I do like Dr. Feelgood, but that would have been one of my honorable mentions. So I'm going to say what mine is. My number 10, and this was not easy because I love this album, but I just ended up here. Somebody's got to be 10. White Snake, Slip of the Tongue, man. We've got some heavy stuff on there like Judgment Day, Wings of the Storm, and then the singles. I don't know what about these singles, but I still love them, like Fool for Your Loving and Now You're Gone. And I love the pairing of Steve Vai with David Coverdale. Some people don't like it, but I think Steve Vai brings an odd, cool vibe, and I love like Sailing Ships. I think that's such a majestic tune, and I just love everything about this album. I love Coverdale's voice, the songs. I don't know, man. That's my 10.
And I think this for me is kind of like how Motley Crue was for you. It's hard to follow up 1987, even bringing in Steve Vai.
Oh, yeah.
I just didn't feel it was as strong, and I did see him on that tour, which was outstanding to see Steve Vai with that band. But I think I loved him more, say, with David Lee Roth, solo band. That's the Steve Vai I loved, and kind of fell in love with that guitar playing, and that, I don't know, it just seemed to fit David Lee Roth. It didn't feel like it fit Whitesnake as much.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that, man. A lot of people feel the same way. What do you got for 9?
So 9, this was one that I know I played over and over and just loved it, just from the harmonies, and I knew, I'll say It's Enough's Enough, their self-titled album. And I knew Derek Frigo from Le Mans, the band Le Mans, and his guitar playing in that band. But yeah, the harmonies with Donnie and Chip, and just I don't know, it was, Beatlesque, I guess, for me, and, I love the Beatles, but, at that time, I wasn't so much into the Beatles as maybe I am today. But so this was a special album for me at that time, and I just loved it.
Yeah. I'm with you. I like that one. That is not on my list. Another revelation. But I like Enough's Enough, and I definitely dig that album, and I had that album back in the day. So that is definitely a good choice. For number 9, I've got Wasp, The Headless Children. And
yes.
I love this album. The reason why I didn't rank it higher, because I feel like this is one of those albums where there's a handful of really great songs, and then there's some sleepers. There's a few songs that like I just not really that into. But I mean, when you look at like the title track, Mean Man, The Real Me, Forever Free, you know, it's so good. And it was nice to see Wasp kind of getting some attention from MTV, because it's probably something that never really happened too much for Wasp. So to see them on Dial MTV with Forever Free and The Real Me, and I mean, come on, we got Johnny Rod, Chris Holmes, and Frankie Banali. That was a kick-ass band, man. So yeah, I always have loved Wasp. It's always been one of my favorite bands. But I do feel that I don't know if there's a ton of albums of theirs, maybe aside from the first two, where I just feel like once you get past the first two, there's some really good songs, and then there's just okay songs. They're not terrible, but they don't stand out to me. So that's why I got Wasp, for that reason.
Yeah, and I think for some of that you kind of explained there is why they fell off my top 10, even though I did like that one. It's on my list of so hard to leave off list. But I like you were mentioning, the first two albums, I mean, I know I played all the time at that time when they came out, and those were strong records for me. And then by this time, there were some hit and misses on this album in particular, but felt like it was a darker, I guess even say mature album on some level. I don't know if that's the right way to word it, but
no, it was.
The production and everything. So I really liked it. It was, like I said, it was hard to leave off, but some of that's why.
Totally understand, man. What do you got for 8?
So 8 is another special band. I know they're special to you as well. Lillian Axe, Love and War was.
Yeah.
And so these guys are special. I got to. I don't want to go too far in this, but I got to meet them back in the day, just after their first release and before this album came out. And I knew they had 3 of the members were in a band called Stiff.
Yep.
Before they joined Lillian Axe with Stevie, and so I loved that 5-song like EP of Stiff, and then it turned into Lillian Axe, and then so I just felt like I knew them earlier in their career, and then kind of got to know them as they grew into Lillian Axe, and then with this release, was just loved the diversity of this album and the musicianship, and his guitar playing is amazing, and I love Ron Taylor's vocals. It was a strong, big package for me that I just loved it.
Well, you want to hear something crazy? This is I got Lillian Axe, Love and War at number 8, and I know everybody who knows how much I like Lillian Axe is probably like, how is this not higher? But I'm going to try to explain.
Okay.
I don't know what it is, but I always, as a kid, I probably got both the debut and this right about the same time. I think I didn't get the debut till 89, and then this came out, and I kind of was enjoying both of those at the same time. As a kid, I always thought Love and War was better. As an adult, I like the debut better, which makes no sense because the Love and War is a more mature album with some really interesting stuff on it, like Ghost of Winter and Letters in the Rain. And I guess at the end of the day, maybe I just like music that's more fun and straightforward now as an adult, and I don't really want to hear like all this epic track type stuff. So for me, I gravitate toward that original between the debut between these two. But always, man, probably one of my favorite Lillian Axe songs of all time is always going to be All's Fair in Love and War. She was 19, hair black as the dead of night. I mean, it's so cool. That song kicks ass. That song will always be my favorite song. I love the cover of My Number. And like I said, I already mentioned some of those epic tracks. But for me, as a full album, for me just to sit and enjoy it, it's just not as enjoyable anymore to me as much as the debut. So if the debut was 89, that might have been my number 1. But since Love and War, it's like I said, I love it, but it's just there's just some songs that just don't resonate the way they used to me. So that's why that brings this a little bit down. But I'm always going to love the Axe, and I always love Ron Taylor, and I'm always going to keep stoning Ron Taylor to come on the show. And he said once he's got something going on, he'll come on. So we'll see if he does.
That would be awesome.
What do you have for
His
7?
voice is great.
What do you got for 7?
7. Faster Pussycat, Wake Me When It's Over.
Nice.
And you just did House of Pain. You guys
Did.
rocked that out. That was amazing.
Thanks, man.
But this album was another, I think, special one for me. I love their debut, but I felt like the songwriting just was so clever, and the music was just it was bluesy, it was rock, it was like lightning in a bottle with this release. They just really hit it on all cylinders, in my opinion, and so I just love that album.
I like that one too. I don't have it on my list, but obviously, especially House of Pain. I love House of Pain. I love Poison Ivy, and all the tracks are good. And you're right, that's more of a step up sonically and musically than the debut. But for some reason, I do not have that one on my list. But what I do have in spot 7, and other people will be shocked maybe why this would be ranked where it is, but it is what it is. I've got Sabotage, Gutter Ballet. I'm a huge Sabotage fan. And anybody who follows the show, I think I've interviewed almost every guy that's ever been in Sabotage.
Oh, yeah.
Or a lot of the key members, at least. The song Gutter Ballet, the song When the Crowds Are Gone, Mentally Yours, this incorporation of the piano and this almost Queen metal type thing that they've got going on is just phenomenal. Now, some people are obsessed with songs like The Hounds and She's in Love, where it gets more metal, just straightforward metal. But I prefer that beginning part of the album that has the piano and has that new sound, actually, that they're trying to develop. So that's why I don't put it as like, do I love every single song? No. Are the songs that I love super strong and can make up for it? Of course. And when I talked to John Oliva, he had said that, the album was already going with these heavy songs, and then he had this idea, him and Paul, to do some of this kind of piano stuff. So those songs were kind of brought in at the end. So in some respects, Gutter Ballet is like a disjointed effort because some of the songs, they're not, But then again, if you talk about Queen, I could talk about Queen all day. I should do a podcast episode about Queen because people probably don't know that about me. I love Queen. I love all their albums, but Queen can put out an album where every song is a different style of music. They can pull it off. But for me, I just like what they were doing with Gutter Ballet and When the Crowds Are Gone so much, and they don't really do much with that again until you get to the end of the album. So, but I love it, man. I mean, that album was definitely opened my eyes to Sabotage, and I've been a nut ever since.
Yeah, that one was hard to leave off my list. That one. That was a tough one. That one hit me as well, and I loved, like you were all the elements you just mentioned with the piano, but interesting that they already had some of the album written and then bringing that in. But yeah, sorry, that one was hard to leave off.
Hey, some people are going to be disappointed. That's the way this kind of shit goes. All right, number 6, my friend.
It's called Cocked and Loaded.
Cocked and Loaded. That's good. We'll be back with more juicy gossip from LA Guns.
Number 6, LA Guns, Cocked and Loaded.
Nice.
Again, this is another one where their debut was part of my soundtrack of my life at that time, and then with this coming in, just another great solid album from them, and Tracy Guns and Phil Lewis, just good combination vocals and guitar playing, and just the hooks, the straightforward. It's a little bit more produced than the first album, but I still think it's got some rawness to it, and I just great for that time.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a great album, and I'm going to be honest. This is an honorable mention for me. This would be 11, all right. But I think this was in there at one point, and I think until Sabotage came to mind, because I think I was really focusing on like the hair metal, glam metal, and then once I was like, wow, we can do anything from '89. I think poor LA Guns got knocked out by Sabotage, but man, I do love this album, and it is a major step up from the debut in my opinion. And I mean, especially I love Never Enough. I love I Want to Be Your Man, Slap in the Face. I mean, it's just a kick-ass album, and I can't fault you for having it on your list. Like I said, It almost was. It was on mine at one point, and it got kicked off. But it's an incredible album.
Yeah, I have that number 11 as well on my list, so I can throw that out later if that works in somewhere.
So, what is your? Are we on 5? Yeah. What's your 5? Oh, did I do my 6? See, this is how you get lost. I even got a piece of paper, and I'm still lost. Okay, I got to do my 6, or I got to do my 6. Okay, so my 6. Okay. This one is one of those albums where I think I liked it as a kid. I bought it in 1989, but over the years, I've realized what a great album it is.
Leather Boys with Electric Toys. That describes Pretty Boy Floyd.
And it's Pretty Boy Floyd, Leather Boys with Electric Toys. I mean, this album is like it's a glam metal, hair metal masterpiece, in my opinion. I mean, it just has everything, and he's got the sleazy glam voice, you've got the guitar playing, the songs, 48 Hours, Mama Won't Know, Last Kiss, Wild Angels. I mean, it's just a masterpiece. I think every song on this album is good. I remember a couple years back, I had a car that had a tape deck in it, okay? And I know it was way past tapes, but it had a tape deck. And I would listen to this tape for a week straight back and forth to work. And then it was like an aha moment. I was like, this album is amazing. I always liked it, but I don't think I knew how good it was, And when I talked to Howard Benson about it, and he felt the same way. The guy who produced it, he's like, man, for the longest time he kept it off of his credits of albums that he's produced, and then he said he went back and listened to it one day, and he's like, it's freaking amazing. It's a great, catchy album. So that's one that I think I'm listening to or giving it more of a chance these days, but it didn't quite hit me at that time. And I don't really quite understand why. It just maybe just because there was so much at that time that one just didn't hit me as certain other releases that particular year. But it is a good one. It just didn't hit me like it hit you, I guess. Yeah.
And other people from that era.
Oh, definitely.
So my number 5 is a self-titled album, Badlands, and they were with obviously Jakey Lee and his band coming out with Ray Gillen, but this one, oh man, what a strong debut, and this one I can just put in, and I just love every song, and it's just Jake's playing and the bluesiness and the vocals and bass, drums. I mean, it's just a full package of musicianship, and it's just solid. And it's hard to even put it number 5. It should probably go up on certain weeks.
Dude, we could do this list again in 2 weeks from now, and it could be totally different.
Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't have this one on my list. I think as a complete album, it's never totally resonated with me, but there's certain songs, and definitely the musicianship of all these guys. This is like a freaking super group, man, with Greg, Eric, Jake, and Ray. So I definitely appreciate how good they are, but for some reason, as a complete album, it didn't make my list. But I mean, no, Badlands kicks major ass, no doubt about it. Okay, so here's what I've got at 5. This will be another one where people could be yelling at me through their, yelling at their iPad or their phone when I say this one, but I'm huge into Britney Fox, man, and I know some of the band members don't like Boys in Heat that much. It must be my guilty pleasure. That's another one. I've got that one in my car on CD, and I can listen to that album for a whole week, man. I love every song. I do admit there may be too many songs. Maybe a few could be cut off, but I don't know. Something about that album, I love the song Angel in My Heart. I love Long Road, In Motion, Long Way From Home. I think that's just a great album, man. I don't know what it is. And once again, it's a fun album. Is it technically to where Sabotage or Wasp is? No, not even close. But there's something about it for me that works. It just has a cool vibe. It's a fun album. The songs are catchy, well written, and I just love it, man.
Well, and this one, I loved it as well, and I loved their debut, but I loved this one as well, and spent a lot of time with it, and it was, again, one of those that was it's on my hard to leave off list, and but everything that you mentioned, it's got great songs. His vocals are unique, and the songs were fun, and it was just it fit that time, and it fit what I loved at the time, and so yeah, hard to leave off for me.
It's okay. My feelings are hurt. I could be a weirdo like Boys and Heat.
I had a feeling that was going to make your top 10, just from some of the things you've said in your other podcasts.
Right. I feel like because of things I've said and people that I've interviewed that maybe some of mine are predictable, like the Lillian Axe and Brittany Fox, and probably some things that are about to come are very predictable. So what do you have for 4?
For number 4, again, this one could probably go up, not down, but it's Tesla, The Great Radio Controversy.
Nice.
Just probably one of my favorite bands at that time, and I mean to this day, even. Just a great record as a whole. I love the acoustic and the electric. Tommy and Frank's combination just really just wrote great tunes, and Jeff's vocals were, again, just unique and fit that style of music, and they were just a little different. I think sometimes them getting thrown into the hair band kind of genre, they were, I think, straight ahead rock and roll band, but they fell into that genre, but which is, I don't know if they take that personally, but I mean, I think they were just a great rock band, and this album and the debut is still one of my favorites. So I mean, this is just a band that I absolutely love and appreciate, and that keeps them high on my list.
Now, here's something that people probably notice about the podcast. There's never been anyone from Tesla on the podcast, and it's because I like Tesla, but I've just never been huge into Tesla. I have a lot of respect for them. I've had the debut and Great Radio Controversy, and I thought Great Radio Controversy was a big step up from the debut, at least for me personally. I love like Hang Tough and Heaven's Trail and all that kind of stuff. So I like a Tesla, but for some reason just never got into them really big, and definitely not something that I play a lot today. So just out of fairness, I don't want to waste anybody's time, so I haven't had them on, because for me it's always easier when I really like the band, like a lot, and
for sure.
So it's an easier interview, and it's a lot more fun. So if anyone's ever noticed, there's never been a Tesla member on. I'm not saying I wouldn't interview Tesla. Now I've just ruined my chances to interview Tesla, but So here's what I got for 4. And at the beginning of all this, I talked about maybe an album could have a really cool vibe. Okay, this one for me not only has amazing vocals, just out of control guitar playing, and it has a cool vibe. It has a strange vibe. It's almost like to me as a kid, it felt like some kind of a mystical vibe. And I don't know what it is about it. None of their other albums sound like this album. I'm a big TNT nut, and I've talked to Ronnie and Tony, and I love those guys. Yeah. And there's just something about that album. I can go through that and listen to that straight through. Tell No Tales is pretty damn amazing as well, but that came out in 1987. But yeah, Intuition, especially the song, is so great.
We just follow the heart, especially on Intuition, which is all about following the heart.
And there's I think Take Me Down, Fallen Angel. There's so many cool tunes on here. Just a cool vibe of this one, and just great talent. So yeah, that's my number 4.
And that was my number 11 that I couldn't quite squeeze in there.
Yep.
And I think it's just from a few songs on that album, but that one was pretty special for me. And I started with them with Knights of the New Thunder, and then Tell No Tales is just, I love that album. And then Intuition, strong, well produced, and it's like there's like 5 songs in there that are like my top TNT songs. But yeah, there's a few that just made it drop a little bit, and that's why they fell to, I'd say, like number 11.
Yeah, nope, totally understand, man. I can't believe we're cruising right along. What is your 3? I can't wait.
3. So Danger, their self-titled album.
Nice.
That one, again, it's just great vocals, great guitar playing. Got, the layer of keyboards, the harmonies, just fun. It was just a fun album, and just the timing of it at the time, just hit on all cylinders for me. And I just love it. And I still love it to this day.
I don't have Danger Danger on my list. I like Danger Danger. I think Ted Poley has an amazing voice. I think in 89, the reason why I didn't get heavy into them at that point, I felt like they were a little light compared to some stuff that I listened to. I don't know what it was. Like somehow they had a Night Ranger type vibe, like really poppy rock metal, and never been into Night Ranger.
I love that.
Yeah, see, I know. But I appreciate that album. I love the singles, and there's a lot of other great songs on there. And I love Ted Poley's voice, but for some reason, Danger Danger and I were just never like super connected. I don't know why that is. And like I said, everybody just has. It's funny how, and what's amazing is how many albums we've talked about. You have a lot of ones that I don't have, and vice versa. And these all came out in '89, and there's a shitload more that came out in '89. It's crazy.
I know.
It's crazy. It's crazy. My 3 is going to be a head scratcher, I think, for a lot of people, and I don't really. I'm not wicked into any other album that they've ever done. This is the album for me that I just think is amazing. And it's Babylon AD, man. Their self-titled album.
Oh.
I don't know what it is about this album. This album has always sounded good to me, and in recent years, it just sounds even better. I mean, I think the singles are so damn catchy. Hammer Swings Down, Bang Go the Bells. And then there's some heavy stuff on there, like Back in Babylon. And then there's this crazy song at the end of the album called Sally Danced, and it's like this southern, almost like bluesy type song. I don't know what it is, man, but it was all working. The whole Babylon AD thing just works as that album. As they progress, I think they may have done 1 or 2 other albums, but they're not like that one. There's something about that album. I'm just wicked into it. I don't know what it is.
That one did not hit me. I mean, I remember Bang Goes the Bell.
Yep.
I can't remember the other track just now, but that one didn't register for me.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to it. It's like one of those that you listen to at the time, and they're like, it's okay, but wasn't strong enough for me to continue, I guess.
Man, Frank, we're falling apart together, man, with these final choice. What the hell? We better come back. I have a feeling. I'm telling you right now, there's no way in hell you had the same number 1 as me, and I don't know if anybody will guess what my number 1 will be. But let's see what your number 2 is. Let's see if we can match up for 2.
Okay, I don't know. I'm kind of wondering, but so for me, Warrant, Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich comes in at number 2, and just for the many reasons of, the songwriting, Jay Lane's voice, the production, the catchiness of it, the fun. And I remember I worked at a record store back in the day, and we got like a 4-song sampler of this album, and I just remember just loving it at the time and kind of wore that out. So by the time the album came out, I just jumped on it that much more, and then got the other songs as a full album, and I just wore it out. Yeah, so that one was easy to keep up there on my list. These next 2, I know that these were very special albums for me at that time.
I don't know, man. Was one of them. I don't know about that number 2, man. I don't know. I'm not know if that album deserves to be there. No, I'm just kidding. I got that one as my number 2. Finally.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's my number 2. Man, that album is so damn good. It should be it's so damn good it should be against the law. 32 Pennies, Big Talk. I mean, and then you've got these oddball tracks, but they're so good, like In the Sticks or something.
The Sticks.
It's freaking awesome, man. Yeah. Cold Sweat. I don't know. The whole thing is awesome. He's an amazing singer, great songwriter, cool, catchy melodies. Friggin' awesome, man. And I know that they, in some ways, I don't think in all ways, in some ways they progress with Cherry Pie. Like some of the sonics are better, and maybe even some of the songs are a little bit deeper. But I say all the way, Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich, for me, is the best Warrant album. And I love Dog Eat Dog, because that's also a very mature and well-written album. But I don't think anything touches the debut album by these guys. No way.
I think you just said that perfectly. That's where I'm at. I'm on the same page.
Well, I know for a fact we're not going to have the same number 1. But I've come prepared to defend my number 1. But let's hear what your number 1 is.
Well, this one was kind of a no-brainer for me for that year, and it's Skid Row's self-titled
nice
album. Sebastian Bach's vocals, the guitar playing, the hooks, there was Michael Wagner produced it, and to me it was just a masterpiece for me. I at the time. That one is like a sound that, I mean, this whole list is a soundtrack of my life for that year, but this one was special. A spring break, I just remember that particular, like, Youth Gone Wild, going on spring break, just like all these things just kind of connected, and it's just my top number one for 1989.
Well, I know a lot of people agree with you. I don't, but I know a lot of people agree with you. No, I like Skid Row. I like the debut. I actually think I liked where they were going once they got to Slave to the Grind even better. I remember, it's funny that we have these, you've got these two up at the top because I feel like Warrant and Skid Row came out right at the same time. I don't know if it was the same week, month, I don't know, but I remember, like, my best friend in school, he bought Skid Row and I bought Warrant, and I remember, once to this day, I still like Warrant better. But everybody can contest that, nobody can fight that one, that Skid Row is not an awesome album. Now, my number one is going to come completely out of left field, and anybody who knows some of the things I've had on the podcast might say, I can see where you're going with this one, but my number one is Loudness, Soldier of Fortune. And I don't know if you've ever, have you ever listened to this album? Do you have this album?
Oh, absolutely. And okay. And I love Loudness. I know that this is the first album with Mike. You just had him on your show not too long ago. Yeah. It's a solid album. This one obviously hits you much differently.
Yeah, and it's funny, if we go back to 1989, I remember the Christmas of '89. I got Soldier of Fortune and Slip of the Tongue for Christmas that year, and I don't know what it was about both of those albums. I just loved them, and maybe it's nostalgia. But today, I went back and I listened to the whole album of Soldier of Fortune today. I actually sealed my driveway today. I was off from work, and I listened to Soldier of Fortune to say, Mike, are you crazy? Why are you putting this at your number one? And you know what, man? I stand by 100%, and I'm going to give a couple reasons why. First of all, let's talk about the guitar playing of Akira. He is phenomenal. And it's tasteful. He's fast. He's intricate, he's unique, and it's tasteful. It's very tasteful, the stuff that he does. It's not like shredding, crazy type stuff. It really fits. To me, this whole album, I don't feel like there's a note out of place with this album. When I listen to it, Viscera's voice, and a lot of people don't look at this like, oh, this isn't Loudness without the original singer. And you know what? I understand that, and I kind of agree to an extent because that's the charm of Loudness. It would be like taking Klaus Meine out of Scorpions or something and putting in some guy that doesn't have an accent, or I know the accent and all that kind of stuff. That's the charm of the band. But Viscera has an amazing voice. He's an amazing lyricist. He writes great melodies. He's like the cherry on top of this awesome sundae. I've always looked at Loudness as like a Japanese Van Halen or something. You know what I mean? The guitar playing is just unreal, and the drummer and the bass player kick ass too. I mean, go back. So anybody who doesn't think I'm nuts, go back, listen to like Danger of Love, Lost Without Your Love. Those are cool, like, just tasteful rock tunes, metal tunes, and then you've got some crazy stuff at the end like Demon Disease, and of course the title track, and then You Shook Me. It's just crazy riffs, crazy solos, amazing vocals. It's the total package. So when I went back and listened to the whole thing today, I was like, man, this kicks ass. I'm sticking with it. There's probably 2 people that'll listen to this and say, yeah, I'm with you, man. And the rest of the people are going to be like, you're crazy. Why didn't you put Skid Row or Motley Crue up at the top?
I love it. I went back and listened to that album once you had Mike on your show. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty solid. I think it's just one of those times, or one of those albums that at that time that there was just so much, maybe that it just kind of slipped through a little bit. Still listened to it, but just didn't play it like I did some of the other releases from that year.
Yeah, and the key thing is, for everybody listening, it's your favorite albums of '89. Doesn't mean it's the best album of '89. Doesn't mean what I like is better than what anybody else like. You know what I mean? It's just like there's something of why did these albums resonate with you? You just don't know. Like you said, you Spring Break and Senior Year. There's all this. Got them for Christmas one year. It's all these things, and then if you can put it on today and it still sounds great and it makes you feel good, it's a win. It's a win-win.
Well, Well, right, and I think that's why we still listen to it to this day, and I think I would challenge the listeners that you have to do their own list and have fun with it, and because it could change daily or weekly, and it was a lot of fun. I went back and listened to so many albums I hadn't really visited in a while, just to go back and listen. And some of them, I still listen to currently to this day. They're still on my playlist.
Anybody who listens knows that my favorite band is Kiss. And Kiss had an album out in '89, and I do love Hot in the Shade. The reason I couldn't put Hot in the Shade on, though, is because I just think there's too many songs, and there's too many duds, you know what I mean? There's some great songs, like Rise to It, Forever, Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell, Love Me to Hate You. There's some really cool stuff on that album, but as a complete, coherent album, it didn't stack up when I put it up against some of these other ones. And another one of my favorite artists who had an album out in '89 was Alice Cooper with Trash.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is with Trash, and this will probably infuriate somebody, but for me, Trash, Alice Cooper lost everything that was Alice Cooper, in my opinion, on Trash. They were trying to mold him to be Bon Jovi and Aerosmith, that Desmond Child model, and we lost the horror aspect. We lost some of the sarcasm. To me, I think it's great because he got popular with Poison, and that is a great song. But some of those other songs, man, they're just not Alice Cooper. Anybody could have did those songs. Any one of these bands that we mentioned could have did that album, and it would have been successful. I just think the things that I love about Alice Cooper were stripped away for that album. So that's why, even though he's one of my favorite artists, I couldn't put that on there.
No, you nailed it. I said ones that didn't quite hit for me, and that's one of them. Along with Kiss, Kiss kind of lost me on Hot in the Shade.
Mm-hmm.
Those definitely I knew I could keep off my list, and even the hard to leave off. It's like, no, this was easy to kind of leave off. It was with Alice Cooper, Kiss, even Great White, Twice Shy.
Yeah.
Aerosmith, Pump. I don't know if that would fall into that at all, but that one just didn't do it for me. And then the hard one, I think, a little bit was like White Lion's Big Game.
Yeah.
It just there was a couple good songs on Little Fighter. The solo on Little Fighter was amazing.
Oh yeah.
But the rest of the album it was just not there, and
agree 100%.
That was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, that was another one where it was like I thought about it, and then I was like, no, man, there's just too many dead spots for me on that one. I don't know what it is. I think the debut is stronger. Actually, I think Main Attraction is the best, but that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
Well, man, this was awesome. So, do you have any questions about things that have gone on in the podcast? Anything you want to talk about beyond this list?
As far as the podcast, I mean, you're bringing on so many great artists. When you decided to do this,
mm-hmm.
and you are obviously trying to just get certain artists on to get this going and reaching out, I guess I just don't know, how did you start to research some of the artists you wanted on your show, and then you nailed a lot right out of the gate.
Right.
I found you during COVID time and
Sure.
just doing some research on TNT, and I happened to come across the Ronnie the Take Row episode, and that's where I kind of got hooked on your podcast. And how did you go about getting some of these artists on your show?
I got lucky out of the gate. And first of all, and I think we talked about this, is that the Twitter account at 80's Glam Model 1 has been probably been the bargaining chip to get people on, because when I started the podcast, I want to say the Twitter account had about 5,000 followers. So at that point, it appears as though you have some kind of outlet to promote this stuff. So I think that's what got people in the beginning. I mean, that Twitter account now has 18,000 followers. So
I'm not on Twitter, so I definitely didn't know.
Yeah, that account has grown quite a bit, and it's grown along with the podcast. So I don't know. It's all working in sync with each other. But in the beginning, that was the bargaining chip, and I just would go to contact us. Here's another thing though. Some of these guys were following me on Twitter, and we were interacting on Twitter. So Ron Keel was like episode 2. He was interacting with me. Jay Pepper from Tiger Tales. Those were the first couple ones. So since I knew them through Twitter and was able to direct message them, that's how things were kind of going. I was like, hey, we got 5,000 followers. Whoopee, we're thinking about doing a podcast. I mean, it was a shot in the dark, and luckily these people were good, good sports, and they played along with me. And then basically then you can just use that. Now it's real easy when I just say, hey, I'm not saying it's easy. Sometimes it is hard to get certain people, but at least you can say, hey, done 100 episodes, talked to Jolyn Turner, Bruce Kulick, Stephen Percy, you could rattle it all off. Stories get carried by Blabbermouth and Sleaze Rock. So there's a whole spiel that I send out now, and there's actually substance behind it. In the beginning, there was probably a spiel. It was like shining a turd. There was nothing there, but it started to grow into something that at least it's there's some substance there. So
I mean, when I look through who you've had on your show and the reason I continue and support, I mean, it's just you're just hitting all these artists and bands that I grew up with, and it's like, yes, it's so great he got them on the show. Can't wait to listen to it. So it's just pretty outstanding that you've been able to keep building on this and get so much support.
Yeah. Hey, man, I appreciate you being a supporter of the podcast, and I appreciate anybody who sends messages to me through Twitter, through Facebook. I got an email one day from somebody from Bangladesh, and they said they listened to the podcast. I'm like, I'm just some regular guy that likes heavy metal, or some guy in Bangladesh is listening to the podcast. How cool is that? So that kind of stuff is like a shot in the arm. You know what I mean? That makes me say, like, oh, this is, people are liking this, people are digging this. Let's keep it going. Let's see where we can go next. So I don't have any plans to stop, and I've got a lot more tricks up my sleeve, and hopefully at the end of the day, I'm just a fan. This isn't my job or anything like that. So I'm just trying to get things, ask the questions of things that I wanted answered or I thought about when I was a kid, or even think about today, and maybe they were the same things that you wanted to know. Obviously, I've got some eclectic taste when it comes to hard rock and heavy metal, with Loudness in TNT and Lillian Axe and all that kind of stuff. So I know a lot about all this stuff. I mean, just like you said, I used to read the liner notes, and and I never really thought, maybe I could do something with this stuff. Back in the day, it was just, I enjoyed music, and none of that information ever left my head. You know what I mean? It's always been there, and it's so weird to think that all these years later that it served at least some kind of purpose, you know what I mean? And it'll always be there. That's I always try to tell my kids, I always say, hey, put your efforts into something, and at least you'll get some kind of output, some kind of creative, idea that you have. At the end of the day, these episodes will always be around. Maybe they'll get discovered, years from now, because the material is all, for the most part, old. We always touch about what the artist has going on today, but we're always going back to stuff that people want to know from the past, whether it be the 80s
right,
or the early 90s or whatever. So it's kind of timeless information. So, it's been fun.
Well, you can tell you're a fan, and I just love you're genuine, and I think that's what makes it more unique. I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I just appreciate what you're doing, and that's why I love being able to support what little I have, what I can, but what the output that you're giving us listeners is top notch, and I just think it rocks. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. All right, man. Well, hey, have a great night, man. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it, man.
Take care.
Well, that was fun discussing our list. Consider supporting the podcast through Anchor, and you may find yourself on here talking metal with me. What a treat. Rock on!